good evening. I'd like to welcome you to yet another edition of Talking with Greenhills. I'm very fortunate to have with me, for the first time on this show, Chief. Welcome, Mr. Fertelman. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jason.
It is unusual because normally we have Yvonne joining us, but due to scheduling and some great things going on in the department, we thought we'd bring you along to say, hey, what's going on downstairs in the police department?
We've had a fun summer. Probably the most fun that we had was our National Night Out, and we had that earlier in the summer, actually on August 7th. And we've learned the key to drawing a good number of people. You grill hot dogs.
I was going to say, food is the key. Food is key.
Absolutely the key. And we had two grill masters. We had our Lieutenant Ann Ward and our Sergeant Tim Lukes, and turns out among all of their other talents, they can grill a pretty mean hot dog.
Two of the finest on the department, and obviously two of the finest cooks you've got now.
Not too bad. So we had a good crowd of upwards of 40-some residents that were able to turn out, and Yvonne Kovac, our manager, had one of her scheduled park talks that night. It just happened to be National Night Out as well, so we combined them, and so we threw in some crime prevention tips and some talks about safety, and had just a great evening with our residents. And not only did we have the hot dogs, but I think the cookies might have been a draw as well.
Good point. Were they baked, home baked, or were they bought?
Well, you know, we didn't have as much time to go out and bake all those cookies, although I have some pretty good bakers on staff.
I was just going to say, I know a few in that department as well. So,
you're right.
Obviously, this was National Night Out is a national item, obviously national in its title. Forest Park and Greenhills used to team up long ago.
That's correct.
And a lot of it had disappeared. You don't hear about National Night Out as often. What was the idea about the resurgence in regards to bringing it back?
You're right. It has kind of disappeared because a lot of funding has dried up. You know, the state funding that municipalities used to get just isn't there anymore. Grants really aren't there anymore. So we've learned to operate lean and mean. We have to do more with less. So this was an opportunity, though, since we already had Yvonne's Park Talk scheduled.
Sure.
We thought, why not? We were going to be in a picnic shelter. There was a grill right there, and it was a perfect opportunity for us to do that. As a matter of fact, we have such generous residents in Greenhills that we've had a group that have donated a good sum of money for community events. So we didn't use taxpayer dollars on the hot dogs or the cookies.
I think that's one of the things most people like to hear, especially when it comes to events.
We try
like
and be
this.
very creative with how we use taxpayer money, because it's a scarce commodity. But we did share a lot of tips, and the one that crosses my mind right now that I'd love to get out is that this has happened throughout a lot of our communities around here, including Forest Park, Greenhills, Springfield Township. We've had a lot of thefts from cars.
Okay.
And the reason that those are happening with such great frequency is, unfortunately, a lot of people get in a hurry. Life is hurried these days.
Oh, absolutely.
And sometimes we forget to lock up our cars. And unfortunately, in the world we live in, sometimes we have people that need money quick, oftentimes for drug habits or other needs, and so they're looking for quick valuables and quick cash. So the thing that they look for is an easy target. So an excellent reminder is always remember when you get out of your car, make sure you get your keys, make sure you got a little infant in the back, and lock that car up tight. Don't leave any valuables in plain sight. We have taken reports where people have left portable computers, iPads, credit cards, billfolds, you name it, and just please don't leave those things in your car. They're too easy of a target.
We unfortunately don't live in an era any longer where trust is amongst all of us.
Well, honestly, even though I'm in a profession where we arrest bad guys for a living, I think most of the world are pretty good, honest people, but unfortunately there are those out there, and it's just smart to keep yourself protected.
Sure. Looking ahead in the future, obviously this was well attended. People know where to get a good dog and get some good good cookies, but also get good information.
Yes.
Do you foresee this expanding next year, or possibly even continuing it to make it an annual event?
Well, yes, I think that we will try and do that again next year. We'll have to look and see when things fall, and I'm sure Yvonne will try and maybe pick her Park Talk around that. And we have another Park Talk coming up. Stay tuned to our website
Sure.
at the Greenhills Greenhills. It's greenhillspd.org, and we'll put something on there. And we're hoping that the last park talk that we have coming up in fall, that maybe we might sneak some more food in there as well.
Get you more people out to have some eyes on there.
Yeah.
Speaking of annual items that are going on, annual is until the day we all see the planet disappear is obviously the first day of school. And school has finally returned to the area, so obviously a good safety tip, watch your speed. I'm not the cop, but I at least listen to something I have to say for once in a while. But we also, prior to school, you with the Forest Park Police Department also got together with Wittenwood School District in order to help a lot of kids that actually made a lot of people smile.
I think it did. It's a great partnership between Forest Park Police, Fire, Greenhills Police, Greenhills Fire, and the school system, which we share. Mm-hmm. So what we did this year, we got together and we said, let's go shopping. So a couple of Forest Park officers, a couple of Greenhills officers got together, and we went out. And once again, we didn't use tax dollars for this. We used the donated funds. And we bought school supplies for some of the neediest kids in our school system that, unfortunately, due to many circumstances beyond their control, they didn't have enough money to buy the supplies that they needed for school. It was just amazing to see. We assembled all this at the Senior Center on Winton Road in Forest Park, and Jason, there were table upon table upon table of nothing but notebooks, pens, all kinds of various school supplies. It was just so great to see. So we were able to distribute those and get those ready for a handout. Then we did a little bit more preparation, and this also is something that perhaps when you and I were in school, no one worried about, was active shooters in school and school violence. Unfortunately, it happens now these days, and we are very fortunate that it hasn't happened around here, but we've remained very prepared for that possibility. So teaming up with the Forest Park Police, we visited every school in the system. We were particularly in our 3 Greenhills school buildings, and we did something that we've never done before. We actually used live fire, using blanks, of course.
Of course.
But to simulate the noise that a shot makes inside a school building. And what the teachers found, we suspected this would be the case, is you can fire a shot at one point in the building. It's very difficult to tell what direction it came from, where it was at. So we spent a lot of time talking about not only the fear that results from hearing those kind of sounds, but having plans of action to be ready for what those are. And of course, we're not going to let those all out on TV so all the bad guys hear them.
I completely understand that.
But we have worked hand in glove with the school system, with the teachers, principals, faculty, and staff, and making sure that they're very prepared that should something happen that might endanger them or our school children, that we have a plan in place and we all know what each other is going to do. And this is a culmination of a lot of planning, years of planning between the police departments and the schools, and I think that we're in good shape, and we hope and pray those kind of things don't happen here, but if they do, we're ready.
Completely understandable. I mean, thinking ahead, what you were saying in regards to having a firearm go off in the building, it's not something you ever want to hear, but at the same time, you need to have that preparedness. I'm sure there was more fear in it, especially after you said not knowing, by listening to it, not knowing where it might be. The acoustics of those older buildings probably play into that. Yeah. Now, I would assume that you may want to do something like that, or you're probably planning on doing something in that same kind of framework with the new buildings?
We absolutely will, and even before the first brick is laid, we have been involved with the design and the planning of those buildings with a lot of security in mind. And one of the good things that comes out of a bad thing is that since we have seen so many of these school tragedies occur, we are as prepared as we can be in the planning. And Steve Denny, who is the Executive Director of Business for the school district, and the Superintendent, Anthony Smith, have been very involved in the detailed planning to make sure that every student is as safe as possible. The sad thing is that the school buildings that we have today were never designed by architects who ever envisioned school shootings. Just didn't happen. No. But now we're prepared, and I'm sure that we're going to be able to, in the interim, because of our planning, keep the kids that are in the present buildings safe, but keep them even safer in the future when the new buildings are built.
It definitely sounds like there's a lot of preparedness. Now, I know that where I'm going to kind of go with this is a little bit of a stray from a shooting, and I'm thankful for that, but it is still in the regards of harm. In regards to bullying, I'm sure that, again, these buildings were never prepared for something as horrific as the bullying that we're seeing currently. Is that something that is also being taught by you to the new school, or vice versa, from the school to you to disperse amongst?
Absolutely, and I think the school system has the biggest part in that because they're with the kids every day.
Absolutely.
But there's a couple of things that we have done that's different than what cops used to do with schools. I think that we are becoming more and more involved in the day-to-day school life. I can tell you that on Back to School Day, which was August 20th here in our local district, our police officers were in the schools. I was there, Lieutenant Ward was there with me. We greeted every kid that came into the middle school and to our primary north school. And what a lot of fun that was, interacting with the kindergartners, and they were just so happy to see us. And, the kindergartners actually hugged us, not so much the middle school kids, but,
sure, right.
But they, they tried, some of them would say hi, and they would kind of go, hi. They didn't want their friends, they didn't want to be uncool.
Oh, absolutely.
But they did want to be friendly. So we were really happy to be involved in that. And one of the things that I think maybe goes hand in glove with some of the bullying and some of the other aspects of the difficult time in your life when you're a teen, for example, is the Forest Park Police and Greenhills Police are pairing up, and within a couple of months in the next semester, we are actually going to be in the high school building doing a teen police academy. We're very, very excited about that. What we'd like to do is reach kids that sometimes their parents aren't around, sometimes their parents have their own issues. And they may be in danger of going off the tracks, so we want to make sure that those kids have the proper guidance. We'd like to see them go down the road where they could become a lawyer, a teacher, a doctor, a police officer, a firefighter, have a good, valued career.
Sure.
And we'd like to actually tell them a little bit more about what we do, maybe get them interested in some of the things we do, and show them the importance of good behavior and how that can greatly affect your future career path.
Interesting dynamics that we're seeing now. I mean, again, going down, talking with the middle schoolers and the kindergarten all going for it. Middle schoolers at that age, I understand. But again, I think you being there also eliminates that idea of fear, because a lot of times people see the badge or and they think bad things. Do you still see that, or is that more of a myth than it is than a reality?
I think it depends on who you ask. I spent 36 years in a larger police department up in Hamilton, and when I came here to Greenhills, I saw this as a community that was absolutely ripe for community-oriented policing at its finest. We really have an enjoyable time with our residents, and I think they have a good time with us, with the benefit of learning some things as well by doing a whole plethora of a mix of community programs. We've done everything from self-defense classes to citizens police academies. We've had frank talks on drug addiction with our residents, but we appear at community events. We go to the park talks. We have a bike rodeo that's going to come up. We'll talk about that in just a little bit in detail, but we have a lot of community events that we work with our citizens on. Probably the biggest challenge that we have in Greenhills, and I saw this when I arrived 5 years ago, was that our salary level is very low compared to comparable police departments. That's one of the reasons our council is going to be running a police levy in November. We have a group of citizens who are working to get that passed. There is a cost of about $122 a year if a resident in Greenhills has about a $100,000 home. So it works out to $10, $11 a month of the cost. But I think the return is that a resident will get a police department where typically they know the officers.
Sure.
I've only been there 5 years, but when I go to a community meeting, it's rare that I don't know the name of everyone that's there. And I think
that's a rarity in itself.
I think our officers really enjoy working with our community, and it's such a great community.
kind of going with that, will we come back a little bit more to talk about the ballot issue, because again, it is important. I know we've touched just a little bit about it, but going on to the idea of training and continuing, you were talking about a kids academy, so to speak, but you've also been training citizens as well, and your staff continuing their training as well.
We have. It's important. We've got a very good fire department, and they're also backed up by Forest Park at times when they're busy. However, our officers need to be first responders in all avenues. So we're all recertified on first aid training, CPR training, and we were very fortunate. Once again, it's the kind of community that helps each other out, and we had an officer from the Greenhills Fire Department volunteer to do all of that training. So that was something that was very beneficial to our officers. Our supervisory staff, you'll certainly understand this, but it's a multi-generational world now in the workforce.
Absolutely.
So we have how many generations? Generation Y, Generation X. I'm not sure what else there is.
I think there's X, Y, the millennials.
There you go, the millennials.
There's a Z now.
That's what I was missing. But we have different responses. Now, I've been around a long time, so when I started and a sergeant told a patrol officer to do something, we just said, yes, sir, and we went and did it. Or if they said jump, we said how high. Today, sometimes an employee will say, well, why? And maybe to an old school traditional supervisor, that's a little maddening. But on the other hand, it shows that you got an employee that really wants to understand why something's being done, and sometimes there is a better way to do things. So we're open to those kind of ideas. So our supervisors were trained in how to appropriately react from all generations, from traditional folks that have been around a long time like me right on down to Generation Z.
Yeah. Do you feel that this type of training has helped you understand in regards to removing that infamous notion of we've done it this way all the time, therefore it's the right way?
Oh, I hate that phrase.
You and me both. It is my least favorite, and that's why I'm bringing it up, because I'm finding that we're finally starting to see that ideal change, that people want to finally get out of that, well, it's done that way before, it's worked that way before, and therefore it is the way it will always be. And with something like this, I feel that it's a means of finally getting to those individuals, be it a older generation or even close to my generation, or those after me, that still are like, well, that's right, that's the path that we follow. Here's now that questioning.
Well, one of the things that I truly enjoy about my job is that I can be a change agent. And one of the big changes we have made, and Ann Ward started this right before I arrived, we have transitioned to a large degree away from a paper workforce to a technology-based or a computer-based workforce. So we used to have a form for everything. One of my big goals is we have this large forms cabinet in our headquarters, and I hope to burn that someday because what we're doing, we're moving so much towards electronic information. And the beauty of that is we can find things so much in a more speedy fashion.
Sure.
The information is at our fingertips, and that helps us help our citizens who sometimes are victims of crime. And we can put crime trends together and look at crime analysis to figure out maybe when something's going to happen or where it's going to happen. And we do that on a regular basis. The neat thing about Greenhills, we don't have the crime level of some other communities. That's certainly a good thing, but what that allows us to do is spend more times on the crime that we do. We're more likely to solve the lesser crimes that other big jurisdictions just don't have the time to even look at.
It's an interesting way to look at it. It also gives you an opportunity to, as you were saying, to accumulate that data and to be able to study it, whereas a larger department may not have the staffing to do it or the time to do it. Now you have, hopefully at some point, to be able to say, let's take a look at this a little bit more in depth.
Well, and another way to look at it is that it results in us being a much safer community. And one of the recent statistics, I believe it was last year, when an analysis was done, we were the second safest community in the entire tri-state area. So those that are listening to shop for a house, take a second look at Greenhills. It's a pretty safe community.
Kudos to you. Congratulations. That is a great honor to have.
Well, it's because we have, I think, such a good partnership with our citizens. They don't hesitate to report things, and we tell them we'd rather check out something that turns out to be maybe just mom or dad waiting on their kid to come out of a building or something, than check it out and maybe it's a burglar casing a neighborhood.
You never know.
Yeah, that's right.
Vigilant eyes, that's the important thing. You're watching Talking with Greenhills here on Waycross Community Media. We are with the summer edition, sans Yvonne, but with Chief Bertelman, talking everything the police department and your safety here in the community. One of the items that you had mentioned earlier is, surprisingly enough, I'm saying summer, we're almost ready to start talking fall. Fall usually means election season, and with that, Greenhills will be putting a ballot issue on the ballot, which does affect you.
It does, and certainly nobody likes to have their taxes raised, and we understand that. But one of the big problems that we've had is a turnover in personnel. Greenhills is a great place for a police officer to work. However, the salary level has been well below equivalent communities throughout the tri-state area. So we've taken a look at that, and we tried to keep this a reasonable amount. It's about $10 a month, as I mentioned earlier, for a person that owns a $100,000 house. But what we're trying to do is get our salary level to be competitive. And part of that reason is to actually save taxpayer dollars. What's happening now is that I've been here 5 years. In that 5 years, I've hired 14 police officers. Bear in mind, we only have 11 police officers right now. So of those 14, 7 have already left for other jurisdictions. We've hired them. We've spent a lot of money and time in training them, and then they've moved on. So we get no benefit out of that. To bring on a police officer, we have to buy a bulletproof vest. We have to get clothing that fits. We have to get other things that can't be reused before. Bulletproof vest is an expensive example.
I can only imagine.
And then we have to invest in a lot of training. So every time we hire somebody, a taxpayer is expending about $14,000 or $15,000 on that officer.
And that's even prior to them getting out into a beat or into their regular position.
Yeah, and it's just not like, hiring somebody to take an order at McDonald's. The training time is pretty quick. A police officer is really not fully trained for just about a year. Until they really get the lay of the land and know the laws and so forth. Even though they've received some academy training, they still have to learn our own unique Greenhills ordinances, and they have to learn where people live and where things are. So it takes a while to train someone. So when we've lost half of the people that we've hired, there's a sign that we need to take a good look at that. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of change in dynamics in the state as well. Local governments don't have the funding from the state that they used to have 5 years ago. So we have to do more with less. And we're to the point now where it becomes difficult to buy a cruiser. Prices have escalated to the point that to outfit a police car is roughly about $40,000.
And you're also using now equipment that you weren't using 5 years ago either. You're talking about cameras, you're talking about electronic equipment, computers of some type in your entire vehicle. That's absolutely nothing we had 5, especially 10 years ago.
Absolutely. The technology has become costly, but it's such a benefit to us. When I arrived in Greenhills, we had video cameras that used VHS tapes, if you remember. And we now have digital cameras. And I think it's such a protection for the officer because oftentimes we'll have a complaint, and then when we watch the tape, we see what really happened. So 90% and 95% of the time, it becomes a huge benefit for us to have an accurate recording of what actually happened.
And going back to even what we were discussing in regards to the schools, you weren't prepared 5 years ago, 10 years ago, to have the shootings and the upheaval that has happened and have escalated since the last 5-10 years.
You're right. It's the world is constantly evolving, but so is law enforcement. And technology becomes a big part of that, and it unfortunately becomes a big price tag. So for us to provide the level of service that I think our Greenhills residents deserve, we have to make sure that we can get the right people and keep them there. And I think that will do that. Now, one alternative is the residents of Greenhills or the council could contract with the sheriff's office. That would provide minimal police protection, and it would not typically involve a lot of the same officers. So there would be, different officers patrolling a beat. The response time is not going to be what it is. Our department prides itself that typically, if we get a call, we're there in about 2 minutes.
And it also loses that personality, the personal touch that you have already established so well within the village.
The people that the criminals that we deal with, typically we know who they are. They often repeat, unfortunately. But we know the lay of the land. We know where things are. We know who is supposed to be where. And I think being able to give that personal touch to our residents really adds a value to that. And honestly, it comes cheaper than what other communities are now contracting with the sheriff for. So we think that this is a win-win for the community. It maintains the level of service that they have, and I think it is also cheaper than the Greenhills Police Department just going away and being replaced by the sheriff.
Absolutely. I don't think anybody wants to see you go or your entire staff. I think that they'll make their conscious decision come November.
Well, I hope so. It's a great community, and our officers really enjoy their jobs and enjoy being able to work in a community. It's a real privilege.
Absolutely. It should be. And speaking of privileges, we have one final note to discuss. This was going to happen earlier this year. However, we had some postponement, and now it's finally arriving. Here comes our bike rodeo.
We're excited about this. This
Absolutely.
is an opportunity for kids to come out and have some real fun, and also for us to be able to share some of the rules of the road with them, and keep them safe when they're on their bikes. That's going to be coming up on Saturday, September the 22nd. It will be between the hours of 10 a.m. in the morning and 1 p.m. in the afternoon. New location this year. We're going to be behind the pool next to Malloy's, back by the golf course.
All right.
And it's designed for ages 4 to 12. If you have a 3-year-old or you have a 13-year-old, that's okay too, because we're going to have a lot of fun. Not only are we going to, again, we've learned that lesson about food. Not only are we going to be grilling some food, we're also going to be giving away free ice cream coupons to everybody that attends.
Oh, you just brought every child in Greenhills.
I sure hope so. We also have donated a girls' bike and a boys' bike to the first prize winners of the bike rodeo. So there will be bike prizes. In addition to that, we hope to be flying in air care. So we'll have a helicopter landing, and the kids will be able to go through that, and mom and dad. And excuse me, we hope to have a canine demonstration. So lots of interesting things going on Saturday the 22nd. And if folks are interested in participating, all they need to do is go to our website, which is very simply greenhillspd.org, or just call us 825-2101, or stop by our lobby at 11,000 Winton Road in the municipal building. We've got forms right there to pick up. We've also sent them out through the schools.
Okay. Now, is there a cutoff date, or can they go in with their forms day of, or how is that going to work?
We'd like to know a little bit in advance how many will be there. So the event is Saturday the 22nd, and we were going to cut that off the Monday prior, whatever date that is.
That makes sense. I believe the 17th, if my math is correct.
Somewhere right around
Somewhere
there.
around there. Don't quote me. In any case.
My degree's in criminal justice, not math.
Mine's in television. I'm still here. So, but for those who have never been to a rodeo, what would they be expecting? I mean, obviously, there's going to be food, family, and fun.
Right.
But the fun also includes what?
Well, it would be age dependent, but little ones we're going to show them, about how they pass to the correct side of the road, and where to stay, and just a lot of general safety tips. And we'll have a little course set up with some cones and a little obstacle course, and just to teach them how to navigate safely on their bikes.
Perfect. Bike helmets, big item. I'm hoping that most of them are going to be wearing them. I'm sure you'll be correcting them if they're not.
Well, if not, we were fortunate enough to receive a grant from the state of Ohio, and we will have a bike helmet for every participant who would like one.
Excellent. See, the village trying to help each other out. This is the way it should be done.
Absolutely.
Chief, we're running low on our time here, and it seems like we just sat down and started talking. Is there anything else that you'd like to bring up to the villagers before we sign off for the summer?
I'd like to reemphasize, try and stay as safe as you can. We already talked about keeping your cars locked. We've had an increase in telephone solicitation. Everybody talks about that, and everybody gets them on their home phones or their cell phones. I think my home phone, probably 9 out of 10 calls is a solicitation. And folks should be very wary of how that comes in. Sometimes if they have caller ID, it'll come in and say someone it's not, or a number from where it's not originating from. So we actually had some that came in and said Village of Greenhills. That were reported to us. So don't trust your caller ID. The IRS is never, ever going to call you on the phone and demand that you buy a gift card from Walmart. So don't fall for those things. My recommendation is, if you don't know who it is that's calling, either don't answer, or if you do want to answer, if it seems like it's a pitch or it's threatening, please hang up. Most folks will not call you, and they'll never call and ask for a legitimate bank, or a business will never call and ask for your Social Security number and account number. So please, we ask everyone to remember not to provide that kind of information. Computer scams are prevalent right now as well. One of the best tips around is that if you have a Windows-based computer and your screen locks up, you can usually hit Control, Alt, Delete, and that will bring up a task manager, and you can bring up and sometimes kill a program that's otherwise got your screen locked. But if the screen locks and it says to call a number that it's Microsoft support, don't call. That's not Microsoft.
Somebody else is playing a game on you, and those are some great tips.
Unfortunately, and if you if residents ever have any questions on some of those kind of things, or any solicitations they receive by mail, call us. We'll be more than happy to take a look at it and see if maybe we can't get the bad guy.
That's the way, that's the way our village police works. Chief Fertelman, thank you so much for coming in. I greatly appreciate you joining us for the summer edition.
It's a pleasure, and we really enjoy working with you, Jason.
Thank you so much. And I also want to thank you for joining us as well. You've been watching the summer edition of Talking with Greenhills, the community access program that gives you all the information that you're able to talk with those in the know in Greenhills. Have a great evening. We'll see you next time.